Phantom Forces is a pretty old game, nearing around 5 to 6 years of age. However, has been probably the most known FPS game on ROBLOX. Even if you don't play it, you probably at least heard of the game. Some new competition has arisen though. Arsenal currently dominating the front page and even achieved 1 billion visits before PF, yet it was made much later. And now a new game is in the works by rolve, which is known as Unit Classified. I will be comparing both of these games, Unit and PF, as in performance, visuals, gameplay, mechanics, and more stuff like that. Phantom Forces was created back in 2014. I was actually an alpha tester myself. It has been in the works for nearly 6 years now. Unit 1968 was created back in 2016-ish, but this one sucked because it lagged so hard. But the new Unit Classified is much better, and it's completely made from scratch. It's been in the works since last year, and it's roughly about a year old. Unit Classified is considered as a beta, and it is in testing phases. Phantom Forces should be considered as mostly a quote-unquote finished game. Performance-wise, the winner is Phantom Forces. To be fair, Unit can probably improve upon this, but rolve in general has always had problems with optimizations. They have not really done a great job on that on, in fact, all of their games. Phantom Forces, I can get a nice crisp 144 frames per second on max graphics, even with 16 players loaded in. This is very nice, as not only does it apply to me, but also to the majority of the player base with more poor-end PCs that can run it a bit better. If needed, you can lower down the graphics to 1 or 2, and in my case, the frames per second is nearly doubled. Unit suffers a bit on this. It could be because of the amount of details present on the map and guns. 10 graphics in Unit and I barely get 100 frames per second. So for normal users, you would probably see a bit of more drops in frames per second. On 3 graphics, I get around 170 frames per second, which is okay, but nowhere near as good as Phantom Forces. rolve will probably improve on this later. Visuals wise, Unit is the clear winner. Not only do the guns just look simply better, but the amount of detail and attention paid to the guns is very surprising. Let's take a look at the M4s, for example. In Unit, when you reload it, you can see the mag release push out the magazine, while in Phantom Forces, nothing occurs. That is a really nice touch to detail right there. The same can be said with the selector as well. Switching from semi to auto, and you can visually see the gun change. In Phantom Forces, nothing occurs. Adding on belt-fed guns such as the M60 in Unit, you can notice the belt of bullets move based on your speed and jumping, as well as the carrying handle. In Phantom Forces, nothing occurs. This for sure adds a more immersive feeling on the game, but Phantom Forces didn't just completely ignore stuff like that. For example, the cylinders spin every time you shoot revolvers, and chipping in new rounds is always a nice thing to see, which is really cool in Phantom Forces. On appearance wise, guns in PF look generally good. Just because it is not a mesh doesn't really mean that it looks like complete trash. I like the look that PF went for, and I think that it did a great job. But comparing the meshes to the bricks, it's quite clear that Unit looks more realistic compared to the Lego guns. Although some of the textures on the guns in Unit aren't the best, as they look something like from a 2003 game. Hopefully that will be changed in the future. Maps in PF are just blocks really. The design I will ignore, as PF has plenty of awfully designed maps, representing Mirage. But visually wise, all of them look okay, none of them are terrible. In Unit, the maps look clearly more realistic, as everything is mostly mesh and texture. Haven't had too much of problems with the invisible wall shields that ROBLOX meshes usually generate, but I won't be surprised to see some in the future. Speaking of visuals, it's time to take a look at the animations. And Unit is the clear winner. In PF, the animations aren't bad, but they're not great either. Some of them seem to be a bit robotic or very, very basic. You can see the quality change when you inspect the guns. PF seems a bit basic, and Unit seems very smooth and more natural flowing. Reloading animations are great for both games. With mag-fed guns, haven't seen anything weird. Belt-fed in PF, however, they are a bit basic, as the belt just kind of flops on, while in Unit, the belt is more natural moving. I really like the amount of detail put into Unit. Gameplay, PF is a bit controversial with that. Most of the guns are mostly locked in mid to high ranks, so noobs have access to basically nothing compared to that. For the most part, noob guns suck. You need high kill attachments to make them viable, but base level 0 snipers and shotguns are great. Have fun grinding away hours to unlock the lower guns in ridiculous amount of time, ranging in 200 plus hours needed for level 100 guns. Assuming if you're a normal player, not some try-hard camper crap. Unit, as of right now, nothing is locked behind ranks or XP, which is really good because players could just jump into the game and choose whatever gun they want. There's no rank lock. I don't see Unit locking guns behind rank walls either because they haven't done this in any of their previous games. Both games have game modes such as TDM and Domination. PF has a bit more of game modes, but very certain Unit will have more as well. Overall though, both seem fine, although I prefer Unit just because you do not have to slave away hundreds of hours to unlock guns. And PF, you can skip it with Roblox, but that includes the topic of pay-to-play / pay-to-win type of feel. For game mechanics, the suppression in PF is a bit much.
Okay, when I say go ahead and shoot. Okay, shoot. Yep. Oh my god.
In Unit, your screen darkens and shakes a tiny bit, but nothing like the M60 shake. Barrier or wall jumping is also a thing in both games. In Unit, it works very smooth, and so far, I had no problems. In PF, it has always been a bit wonky, and sometimes it can flink you up and kill you due to fall damage. This has been a problem since 2015 and has never been fixed. There's also perks and equipment in Unit, while PF has never had anything like this. It has been left with this for about 5 years. And that's basically it. That's all I really wanted to point. Those are the pointers I wanted to give. And now it's just my general takes of the games. PF is pretty cool. I spent hundreds of hours in it. However, I noticed some bugs or quality control issues that have been left in for years, which for the most part is just unexcusable. The same can be said with the massive hit reg failure problem it had, which made lots of players quit the game. That was a good time, man. That was a real good time. But Unit, despite being about a year old and just barely been released, has much more promising long-term goals, better quality control, and mechanics. I like both games, and comparing these two was pretty fun, looking at all the small details and more in-depth stuff. PF was a large part of my teenhood, as I would play it a lot when I got back home from school. Of course, I'm no coder myself, so I have no idea how PF looks in codes. I assume it's a bit messy, but it is a pretty old game. Stylus Studios is coming out with a new game called ROBLOX 6. Hopefully that will be very cool to play, but I can't say much on it as there's not really public gameplay testing and there's not really a solid foundation build up. You go play today. Okay, pretty much done with this video. See ya, dude!